Hey everybody, welcome back to another Pep Talk Tuesday. How's it going today? We have a lot of people joining us. Hello, hello. Better every day. I'm glad to hear it. Hey all. Today we're going to be talking about how to avoid analysis paralysis. Now, if you've been following along with AutoCrit's free Novel 90 writing challenge, which is a 90-day challenge to write a novella over the course of the summer, you know we're getting ready to gear up and dive face first into the editing phase on August 1st. If you're not, you're here because you're struggling with analysis paralysis for other reasons, then welcome. You're still in the right place. We want to help get past what can be a major hurdle in the writing process as part of today's pep talk. So, we're going to chat about 5 reasons that you might run into analysis paralysis, and then we're going to talk about 5 tips that you can use to get past these stumbling blocks along our editing phase. So, before we get too far into this, maybe you're new to this term and you're wondering what even is analysis paralysis exactly. So, analysis paralysis is a moment that many authors encounter in their writing or editing process when we become so overwhelmed or frustrated with the work we're doing that we cannot make any more progress. Sometimes this is going to be on the writing side. You hit a wall, you hit a slump, and then you try to go back and reread, and then you feel like what you wrote was crap, and then you feel like you shouldn't be writing it at all. You need to start all over again for the beginning, and then you get into this vicious cycle of rewriting and never getting anywhere. Sometimes this hits in the editing phase where we just never feel confident enough to let our edits go to an editor. And so we just keep revising, keep revising, keep revising. And years later, that piece hasn't gone anywhere, right? So whether you're in the writing phase and you're stuck there because you just can't get out of the analyzing the quality of your work, or you're in this editing phase trying to get this book done and out, this is something that can be a huge struggle for many authors. I've encountered this myself. There's a reason I put masking tape over my backspace and delete keys when I'm in my first draft and don't let myself reread. It's because I don't trust myself to get past analysis paralysis. So I'm going to just share a little bit going into this. Now, if you do want to join the AutoCrit writing challenges, the Novel 91 for the summer is coming up on the editing phase for August, but we're also taking pre-registrations now for the fall one. So you could sign up for those there, and they're 100% free to follow along with us. Okay, so now that we know what analysis paralysis is, we want to get to the big reason we're here. How do we defeat it? Well, you can't defeat something if you don't know what's causing it. So we're going to go straight to the core of the issue. First, looking too far ahead. This one might catch everybody by surprise as our number one pick, but often one of the biggest stumbling blocks to analysis paralysis is getting ahead of ourselves. We come up with new ideas before we even get one finished. We imagine our books on bookstore bookshelves, and we get so caught up in the daydreaming that we never actually finish. If any of these, as we go through them, resonate with you, please let me know in the chat. You know, we look so far ahead that we can't put our full attention on where we are right now. The second big reason why people run into analysis paralysis is because they have unrealistic expectations going into their process. And I'm looking at my planners and planters here specifically for a moment. If you feel like having a perfect outline is going to give you a perfect draft, and then you start editing and you realize, oh, how imperfect it is, there could be a strong temptation for our planners and planters to want to just scrap the whole thing and go back to the drawing board and rewrite a perfect outline. Because if your outline was good enough, shouldn't your piece be good enough? Except that's not quite the case. A pantser might expect themselves to be able to fix everything in post in just a couple days after the book is done. But because we didn't outline before and we're not setting ourselves up a proper cushion, we are putting unrealistic expectations of ourselves. And human brains are funny things, you guys. If we set ourselves up with goals and ideas that we can't meet, it starts to fuel our imposter syndrome. So we start self-fulfilling prophecy. Essentially, we start saying I'm not good enough, and then we don't meet something, and then that makes us think we're not good enough, on and on and on, and that spirals into full-blown imposter syndrome. So not having realistic expectations can then make you feel behind and get you in a loop where you feel like you'll never catch up, and thus you have your analysis paralysis. The third most common reason is vague goals. You make goals like, I'm going to edit my book this month, but that's as far as you get with it. That's a very vague goal. What does that mean to you exactly? How are you going to achieve this? Where are your day-to-day goals, your week-to-week goals, right? Vague goals. I'm going to finish the book. I'm going to finish the book when? Give yourself specifics. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go further on. But if your goals are too vague, they're just floating in the ether, then you are basically leaving yourself wide open for sidetracks, for roadblocks, for analysis paralysis to creep in and keep you from making progress because you don't have anything pushing you to make that progress. 4, we talked about this a little bit earlier. If you're not careful with your expectations, you can end up spiraling into imposter syndrome. You can pick up that book, you can look at that garbage draft, as I affectionately call mine, and think, who am I kidding? What am I doing? There's so many more writers out there that are better than I am. I'll never be as good as insert popular name here. I don't have the skills for this. I didn't even take a college course in writing. I barely made it out of high school. Like, there's so many things that just creep into the back of our head. And they go, this isn't for you. This isn't for you. This isn't for you. And then if we don't have those strong expectations, we don't have smart goals, we're also going to feed into this, and it will make our imposter syndrome a monster that has to be defeated before we can actually get anything done. And then finally, now while I say there's this imposter syndrome telling you lies, there is something to be said for being honest about getting help with skills you don't have. You genuinely don't have. If you have never written or edited a book before in your entire life, this is your very first time, then congratulations. Excited you're here. Don't expect yourself to be a master at writing a book, at editing a book, at publishing a book, at querying a book, if you've never done it before. That's ridiculous. You would never say to your best friend, oh, you've never done anything bookish your entire life. If this book isn't a USA Today bestseller, then you're trash, right? No. So don't let your imposter syndrome tell you that either. Recognize when the imposter syndrome is lying to you and keeping you off course versus when you genuinely lack skills you are going to have to learn to achieve this process, right? And it can be, exactly. It's a huge learning curve. It is. We're learning, especially if you're going to self-publish, you may have to learn not just how to write a good story, but how to self-edit a story, when to hire human editors, when to query, when to put up a pre-order, when to market. And that goes back to point 1, right? Looking too far ahead and getting so caught up in what hasn't happened yet that you can't move on today, because today my goal is to finish draft 1. Today my goal is to finish a developmental edit. Today I'm just supposed to get through this specific thing, but I'm too nervous and freaked out by all the overwhelming stuff I don't know that I won't get to it. So if you haven't figured this out already, a lot of our analysis paralysis is a loop that feeds through these 5 things. I don't have the skills to do this. This means I'm going to fail. Why even bother setting goals? I'm just doing this for fun now. My expectations are, low again, or that I can achieve all of this and learn everything in a single day, right? And then I am freaked out by how much I have to do versus the opposite side. So you can scroll through these in either way. But these 5 things, these 5 points come together to fuel our analysis paralysis. And we have to overcome them if we are going to get out of this paralysis cycle and get back to actively editing, actively writing, actively getting a book done. All right. So, we talked enough about the negatives. Let's talk about how we fix it. Let's talk about how we get out of it, how we keep going strong in our phase. And I know several people in the chat are saying, you don't know if you'll ever have a good book. You don't know if you're ever going to have the time. You don't know if you'll ever get these skills. These are things that you can do. I believe in you. AutoCrit believes in you. Becca and Kat over in Novel 90, we believe in you. That is why we do these pep talks. That is why we do the free classes. We are here for you. And I want you to start believing in you, even if it's something small. Because just like failures add up to make you feel like your imposter syndrome is a monster, small successes add up to make you feel like you can actually do this. And it turns you into your own superhero. So first, instead of getting caught up in the future, keep yourself focused on the task at hand. I am telling this to both my daydreamers out there and my overwhelmed authors. My daydreamers. Bestseller titles are great, but they are not where you are right this second. We need to get the book done first. We need to get the edit done first. Seeing your book turned into a Netflix series, author dreams right there. But let's leave the dreams for a moment. That comes in the sales and marketing phase. Let's focus on where we are right now. Now, my overwhelmed authors, you're on the opposite side of the thing. You're going, I'm never even going to finish a draft. Who am I kidding? The imposter syndrome monster has you by the feet, is dragging you away. So I'm going to chop the monster off and bring you back. Say, let's keep focused. We just need to finish today's goals, today's task. We don't have to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to worry about itself. You're going to stay on target. 2, if you genuinely want out, which is something you're going to have to ask yourself, of analysis paralysis, you will have to be honest with yourself. Now, as we get more books out, we become more public facing. We have authors looking up to us. We have readers who are following us. We start to get into this mode where we feel like we can't be imperfect. But your community, like we talked about how to find your community needs to have the actual you present. And you need to be honest with yourself, even if you cannot be honest with your peers, with your coaches, or with your readers. Where are you right now? Do you want this genuinely? Or do you like the idea of it, and actually going after it is something you haven't truly committed to yet? Do you actually want this? If you do want this, as we go through those 5 points and look at ways to fix these, be honest with yourself about where you fall on each one. Are you that dreamer, or are you the person who's overwhelmed? If you know which one you are, you can help yourself find more balance, right? I know that I tend to be a dreamer. I think big and have trouble meeting my own expectations. Therefore, I try to make myself slow down. I put safeguards in place so that I'm not announcing an entire book series before they're even written, right? My overwhelmed authors, if you know that you tend toward that overwhelmed side, then you could say, you know what? No, I'm not going to look at that. I know that I struggle with that. So as soon as my Google search starts going into the editing direction, I'm going to reel myself back in. I should not be editing right now if the first draft isn't done. And then we propel ourselves forward that way. But just want you guys to be honest. And you will have several moments through your writing and publishing career where you have to come back to this and be honest again. Do I still love this series? Do I still love this book? Do I still love writing and publishing? If not, why? So that you can fix it now instead of waiting for it to compound into a bigger snowball that you can never fish your way out of. All right. Now that we're talking about being honest, we need to shift into goal setting. I love that question. What if you're both dreamer and overwhelmed? I think you need to find that in the middle, right? Your dreamer side can be a great weapon to use against your overwhelmed side. Like, oh yeah, but it'll be great because we can see our name on Barnes and Noble bookshelves, right? And vice versa. You start drifted too far in the cloud, use that overwhelmed tendency to drag yourself back down to the present. We're trying to keep ourselves in the middle, keep ourselves walking that fine line. All right. So, goal settings. You may have heard of SMART goals before, but we want to set SMART goals for ourselves. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you have to tell yourself write 500 words a day or any of that nonsense. Even I don't write every single day. But you need specific goals. That means instead of, I want to finish a book, I want to edit my book in August. It has to be detailed. What exactly are you achieving? I want to have my book developmentally edited. Pause. That's where we are. I want to have my book developmentally edited. That is one of the 5 levels of editing. I'm going to get that part done. Measurable. I have one novel of 155,000 words that I need to get developmentally edited. Attainable. Is it realistic? Can you actually do this? Make your goal something that doesn't push back into that problem of setting unrealistic expectations. Could I dev edit my own book in a day? Yes. But what if I get sick? What if my cat gets sick? What if my son gets sick? What if something happens with my husband's job and I have to drop everything and run, right? Let's make some room for life's road bumps. So if I want to have my book edited, I want to have a developmental edit, and I need it to be attainable, then I'd say, okay, I want to developmentally edit my 155,000 word novel. I will do so in 1 chapter chunks. So 28 chunks in my case. If I do multiple chunks in a day, I've exceeded my goal. Hooray! There's nothing stopping me from doing extra. If I don't, then I have to readjust. Maybe a chapter a day was too ambitious. So tomorrow we're going to do a half chapter. Find the balance that works for you. Make it relevant. So it has to be relevant to what you're doing. As much as we love K-pop Demon Hunters is trending right now, and the songs are so catchy. As much as we might love listening to them, if they're distracting you from your writing, then it cannot go adhere to your SMART goals. So instead of, I'm going to developmentally edit my novel with 1 chapter chunks, and I'm going to do it with K-pop Demon Hunters, I'm going to keep it relevant, and then I'm going to send that chapter off to one of my beta readers who loves to read my books for me. Then we have timely. Keep it pertinent. Keep it soon. It's coming soon. It's going to happen. It's imminent. Small chunks can have those shorter deadlines, and achieving those give you the building blocks you need for your end goal. My end goal is to have a fully edited book in the month of August. But if I set a goal to developmentally edit my book in 1 chapter chunks, 2 to 3 chunks a day, I'm going to do this in about 1 to 2 weeks, and then I'll be on target for my line edit, right? That's the end goal. All right, so set yourself SMART goals. Number 4, you've got to kick imposter syndrome to the curb, you guys. It's got to be done. If you have not seen Becca's video on beating imposter syndrome, it is in the YouTube Pep Talk playlist, and I'll drop the link to it in the chat, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can just hop over to our playlist. I recommend watching it. Imposter syndrome is its own monster. It has its own separate video, but in short, we are keeping realistic versions of ourselves. We're not setting ourselves impossible expectations. We are acknowledging when we have a genuine weakness, we have a genuine room for opportunity in our life, but we're not letting it define who we are as people, right? And we do not compare ourselves to other authors who are 10, 15, 20, or 40 plus years down the road from where we are in their writing journey. All right. Finally, seek help and start researching for the things that you know you don't know. How many levels of editing are there? Well, I told you guys earlier, there's 5. What are they? What are you supposed to do in each one? You don't know these kinds of things. It's going to make it really difficult to then try to tackle a self-edit because you have no idea what you're going to be doing, right? Asking for help from peers, from mentors, from us coaches if you're in Novel 90. Asking for help switching. We had someone who's trying to write fiction for the very first time, successfully published nonfiction many times, but now they're trying to write fiction, and they know it's a different process. It is okay to ask for help, to reach out, to learn new things. Don't let your research run off like a mischievous little squirrel with all your writing and editing time. Pave out time for it. But never stop learning. There's always room to learn. And this industry changes constantly. What worked to sell my debut epic fantasy isn't going to get me the same amount of sales today because the market's changed and readers have changed and trends have changed and social media platforms have changed. So I can let myself get down and depressed and paralyze me from getting any work done, or I can adjust and make the time to research and learn those new things. If you are stuck with editing specifically, I'm going to be teaching a 30-day intensive story sculptor course here in AutoCrit starting on August 1st. I will walk you through getting your complete novel done in 30 days. It's intensive. I would plan for about an hour a day worth of time if you are brand new and have never done this before. But the goal is to help you get through your full novel in a 30-day span. I can do a self-edit in a single day now, but you guys don't have to. I'm here to help teach you how to do it in 30. So that's just one example. AutoCrit has free classes. You can go to our YouTube channel and go to AutoCrit 101, which is a playlist, and try to teach yourself to self-edit with free resources. There's entire channels here on YouTube to help you. AutoCrit's one of them, and then there's many others where you can go and try to learn how to write, how to edit. So in order to make the most of your time, though, you have to know where your weaknesses are, and that comes back to being honest with yourself. I feel really confident in marketing and in publishing, but maybe I'm not feeling that confident in my next series. Maybe something about it makes me go, what if this one doesn't go well? And I need that resource. I'm going to reach out to a professional beta reader and get the jagged, honest truth, or run it through Market Fuel, which is AutoCrit's new marketing research tool, and see if it thinks that I'm going to have a lot of challenges trying to market that series before I put the pen to paper, right? That's just two examples from myself. Maybe for you, it's learning to edit. Maybe for you, it's learning to write. Maybe for you, it's learning to refine a very specific part of writing that's hard, right? Yeah. We definitely want to help get through all of these things with you guys. All right, we're going to stop for questions at this point, but I hope that this has been helpful overall. Remember, there's those 5 points that lead to your analysis paralysis. We want to overcome them in order to get out of this cycling phase. I urge you very strongly to step away and let your book breathe for 1 or 2 days before you come back to it if you're in the middle of a paralysis cycle right now. If you're not getting anything done, step away for a day or 2. Come back. Let's make some SMART goals. Let's see what we need to research and learn. Let's make some realistic expectations for ourselves. And then we will tackle it all over again. Story Sculptor. You do not have to have a completely finished book yet for Story Sculptor. So if you obviously want it to be fully edited by the end of August, that it will need to be finished before you join us. But if you're there to learn to edit, you can absolutely sign up, and then you'll get, if you purchase it, permanent access to the replays. And you can go back when your book is done and work through it on your own pace, which is what a lot of people did earlier this year. No, we love our lurkers. Yes, it can be very hard to ask somebody to read your work. And if you watched our pep talk last week where we talked about, is my book any good? One of the points that I made was, if you are looking for someone else to read your work because you want validation instead of an objective view on the book, you are going to be disappointed, and you are setting yourself and the reader up for a negative encounter, because people who ask for that for validation are either not going to actually believe the positive stuff they get, because I know it's bad deep down, and that's what you're telling yourself, and they can't combat with your inner voice, or you are going to use it as fuel for your imposter syndrome monster, because they're going to point out that your book has room to improve, and then you're going to go, see, it was crappy. I should never have done this to start with. So before you give your piece to someone else, you have to objectively analyze it yourself and get to the point where you know you could be objective about it. So then you can implement that feedback and sort of skip over that awkwardness. Also, it could help going with a professional instead of asking a friend or family member who then has the double awkwardness of, you're my friend and I don't want to tell you the truth. Going with someone who's a professional the first time, like a developmental editor who does a professional beta read or something like that. You don't feel the same joy with what you write for publication. And that's something that can happen to a lot of us. And I would put that almost more in that reviving your ancient story idea category, because when you write full time for a business, writing becomes your job. And jobs feel different than doing something for fun, right? It just does. We have to do it. We have to pay the bills. The stuff has to get written whether we like it or not. And it makes some of those books products. So you have to be careful when you choose this as a writing career that you are honest with yourself. It comes back to expectations. I expect to have to churn a certain amount of books to keep a full-time income as a full-time author. And you know what? That's not for me. So I'm going to be a full-time editor and write on the side as a hobby. Or I'm going to go into this and I'm going to have some projects that are just products meant primarily to pay my bills. And then I'm going to have some projects that I keep for my love of writing and for my passion in writing, and bring it all back full circle. In my free time, I'm going to write books I actually want to write. You know, Brandon Sanderson made a move that shook the indie community, doing a Kickstarter for 4 books, I think it was, that he wrote in secret while also trad publishing the ones that he was contractually obligated to write, because there were stories that he just wanted to put out there, right? Yep. Life gets in the way of writing, but doing your best to get through it. Absolutely. Build in that timeline, knowing that life will happen. And so while you're ahead and life hasn't happened, you're ahead. And then you're ahead when life hits really hard and you're sick, or you have a job issue, or you need to move, or something else happens, right? And if you're going to write, that's a really good point too. Thank you for sharing that. If you are planning to write full time as a living, as a job, this is going to pay your bills. You still have to work when life goes wrong. You might take some sick time, right? You might take a little time off to be with your family for bereavement or something like that. But in the end, if you work a 9 to 5, you still have to go back to work. That amount of time off is always too short, right? And if publishing is now your job, that is how you have to treat writing. That is how you have to treat editing, and that is how you have to treat publishing. That I'm going to let myself take a few days off, but this isn't a hobby that you can just reprioritize. You don't get your bills paid and you don't get to eat if it doesn't get done. So we have to readjust our shift, readjust our focus. But all of this you have to be careful about, because it can fuel that first point. Getting stuck, looking too far ahead at what if life happens? What if I don't have the motivation to keep going long term? What if I get into publishing and don't like it? And you're looking too far ahead, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to feel your analysis paralysis. So stop a minute, because we need that contingent plan built in for our realistic and smart goals. But that doesn't mean we need to let it carry us away to the point where we can't get something done. So what if you put a book out and you don't like publishing? You can walk away. You're not stuck in this job. You put it out and it doesn't go as well as you planned, you could do better on the next one. It's a learning experience. Let's not worry about what's not here yet. Let's focus on what is here today, right? And yes, Susan, focus on an idea that you're passionate about and let's get it done today. All right, everybody. Well, we are at time for today. Thank you so much for being here with me, for chatting about analysis paralysis with me. I hope that you found this helpful. We will see you guys next week on the next Pep Talk. Take care, everybody. Bye.